Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I was just reading a book. In fact, I was reading Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, one of my favorite books of all time, while drinking out of my literary mug of The Little Prince. What I've decided to do is I wanted to read a book on my channel because I enjoy reading aloud. I wanted to do a Star Trek book, but realizing that that would be illegal, I decided to do something that is in the public domain. So therefore, I am going to start doing a video every now and then, maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, where I read a couple chapters of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So I hope you guys will join me for that. Good morning, guys. Or at least it's morning where I am. I'm having my morning cup of coffee. Today I'm going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 5 of Star Trek The Next Generation, called Loud as a Whisper. It is about the Enterprise being sent to retrieve a negotiator named Riva, who's supposed to negotiate a treaty between two sides of a warring planet. So they're sent to pick him up, and they discover that he is deaf and mute, and that he has a chorus of 3 people who speak for him. And this chorus, they portray different parts of his personality. So there's the intellect, there's the passion, and then there's the mediator in between. So these 3 people, he has some kind of psychic link to them, and they speak for him. So he goes aboard the Enterprise, and he immediately has a bond with Deanna Troi. And they go out to dinner, they kind of explore this bond that they have. And then they get to the planet, and it turns out that one person from one of the warring factions, because they each send 2 people, so one of the people does not want peace. And he freaks out, he pulls up his weapon, and he shoots the chorus, instantly vaporizing all 3 people. So, of course, Riva is devastated. He feels like he got his friends killed. He can't communicate with the outside world. So Data learns sign language, the version of sign language that Riva is using, and Data is able to communicate with him. And Riva says, I want to go home. I can't negotiate. I can't create this treaty without my chorus because, they speak for me. I can't do it without them. And Deanna Troi tries to convince him that, maybe you can still make it work. Maybe you can turn your disadvantage into an advantage. And at first he's reluctant, but then he realizes that maybe this is an opportunity. So he goes back down to the planet, and he decides to teach the two warring factions, their leaders, he decides to teach them sign language, so that they will have to learn to communicate with him before they can communicate with each other, And in that way, they'll be forming a bond, and they'll be having something in common. So that's the gist of the episode. It's fairly straightforward. There's no life or death situations for the crew. There's no subplots going on. It's just centered on this negotiator, Riva. And I thought it was a really strong episode. I think it's cool that they're exploring something like deafness, because that's something that the Next Generation tries to do. They try to explore more diversity, people with disabilities, different kinds of situations that they might find themselves in. I mean, take, for example, you have Geordi, who's blind. That's not something that they had in the original series. So with Riva, he is very pompous. He's very arrogant, and it's almost rightfully so, and it's almost earned because he has such a great track record. He negotiated a treaty between the Klingons and the Federation, and so Worf has heard of him, and Worf respects him a great deal. And there's a scene where Worf is excited and kind of has trepidation in meeting this man because he is such a renowned negotiator, and he's such a great man. And it's interesting seeing throughout the episode as Riva loses his ability to communicate, which is his strongest asset, and he loses his chorus, and not to sound cruel, but he almost gets knocked down a peg. He loses his self-confidence, and it's sad. It's very sad to see because he goes from being this very self-assured man to being panicked and almost broken, because there's a scene in the observation lounge after he gets his chorus killed where he's just desperately signing and no one can understand him. And it's very sad because you get a sense of the kind of isolation that he must feel, and that people who can't communicate with the outside world must feel when they're in a situation like that. and it's a very touching moment. So I really like that. Um, let's see, other things that I enjoyed about this episode. Just, I mean, it's like I said, it's a very simple episode. So I was discussing this with my boyfriend, and he loves this episode. He loves this episode more than I do. And he loved the sense of loss and responsibility that Reva was feeling, because he felt like he got his friends killed. This chorus, they weren't just translators working for him; they were his friends. They built up this bond over years in order to communicate, to be able to communicate with this like psychic link that they had. And he felt like through his arrogance he got them killed, and that's what shattered his self-confidence. So at the end, when Deanna Troy's talking to him and she said Picard gave me clearance to try to negotiate this, and Reva's like, you're not going to be able to do that, and she's like, well, I have to try because you're not going to. And she kind of puts the responsibility back on him, that even though he suffered this loss, Deanna is saying he can't just give up. He has to keep trying. And I thought that that was really powerful. And it's almost kind of sad, because it's like, you know, come on, give the guy a break. Let him go home. He just lost his 3 best friends. He lost his ability to communicate. His life has been fundamentally restructured by this one incident. So you kind of let him go home. But they don't. They put this responsibility on him to continue fighting or continue trying to stop the fighting. But you know what I mean. So I found that interesting. It's about this sense of responsibility to others, not just being able to wallow in your own grief, that I found very compelling. So, other things, there is a funny scene where Data is learning sign language, and let me put my coffee aside for this. Data learns sign language from the computer, and he goes into Picard's office, and he's like, let me give an example. This is the color blue. This is the blue ocean. And he keeps going, and he's like, this is 2 people walking along the blue ocean. This is 2 happy people in love holding hands while walking along the blue ocean at sunset. And I remember that scene from the first time I saw it, or from the last time I saw it, and I just think it's really funny. It's one of those Data scenes that are really good. The one thing I did not like about this episode, and I think I can never tell if it's intentional, is that Deanna Troi has really creepy relationships with men. There's another episode that I just watched in season 3, and I can't remember what it's called because I haven't been paying attention to the title, but it's about an empathic negotiator who comes aboard the Enterprise to try to get control of a wormhole. And Deanna Troi kind of gets a relationship with him, and it's also super creepy. And I feel like, I don't know why Deanna Troi gets put in these situations where it's like men are just being really weird towards her. But that always seems to be her relationships, and they're portrayed as being not weird. And that's what's weird about them. If it was like, oh, this guy's coming on to me and it's creepy, you know, like, okay, I can deal with that. At least you recognize that it's creepy. Excuse me. But if it's a situation where this guy's coming on to me and he's being creepy, but I like it because he's hot, it's like, no. That's weird. No. That's weird. So, Reva instantly takes a liking to Deanna Troi, and he's like hitting on her even when they first pick him up on the planet that he's on. And he's like, you know, I want to spend more time with you. This voyage is going to be very, you know, enjoyable. And it's just like, okay, you know, it's not terrible, I guess. And then they have dinner together, and he only has his one negotiator, or his one member of the chorus there, the one who like speaks for like his passions and stuff, because that's all he needs around her. He doesn't need logic and intellect, he just needs his emotions. And I felt like he was just coming on really strong. For some reason, I'm very defensive of Deanna Troi because I feel like she's not a very well fleshed out character, and I feel like they put her in weird situations that just like make me cringe. Like, she gets like so much weird stuff happen to her. Like, she got pregnant a couple episodes ago with an alien baby. At one point, she gets like psychically raped, and it's like super traumatizing, and then it's never talked about again. And it's just like, you know, like, why do you make all the weird stuff happen to her? Like, she doesn't get, like, beat up and stuff, but she gets, like, a lot of emotional trauma. And I get it because, you know, she's, like, the emotional, empathic one, but still. So, that's the only thing I didn't like about this episode, was that he was just coming on kind of strong, and it should have been creepy, but it wasn't portrayed as being creepy, and I found that weird. I also am easily creeped out by people, though, apparently, because in the outrageous Icona, I was also outraged about that, so who knows? Maybe it's just me, but I don't think it is. So, let's see, let's look at my handy notebook where I write down all of my notes and see what else I had to say about this episode. Nope, that was it. Alright, well, thank you guys for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any comments about this episode, if you liked it, disliked it, if you have any insights. I have some different episodes, different things that I'm going to be doing coming up, but I'll be talking about those later, and I'll just let you guys discover those in future videos that I put out. So I hope you guys enjoy them. Thank you.